Greenland is the world's largest island, an immense landmass, predominantly covered by a vast ice sheet. Geographically, it sits at a critical juncture, nestled between the Arctic and Atlantic Oceans, to the northeast of Canada. Though enormous in size, its population is remarkably sparse, with most inhabitants residing along the ice-free coastal regions. It is an autonomous territory within the Kingdom of Denmark, possessing its own distinct culture and governance. The unique, harsh environment shapes life there, making it a place of stark beauty and considerable geopolitical interest, a factor that has not gone unnoticed in recent times by international powers. The discussion surrounding Greenland has been thrust back into the international spotlight due to renewed declarations from United States President Donald Trump. He has recently reiterated his long-standing desire for the US to acquire Greenland, a proposition that first surfaced publicly during his initial term in office. This ambition, which he has voiced on multiple occasions, including as recently as December 23, 2024, while announcing Ken Howry as his ambassador to Denmark, continues to generate significant debate and reaction. The president's persistent interest suggests a deep-seated belief in the strategic advantages such an acquisition might offer to the United States of America. This is not a fleeting fancy for Mr. Trump. His interest in Greenland has a documented history. During his first presidency, the notion was seriously explored within his administration, culminating in a rather public and somewhat awkward diplomatic episode. When the Danish government, including Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, unequivocally dismissed the idea of a sale, President Trump responded by cancelling a planned state visit to Denmark. This past incident underscores the seriousness with which he views the potential acquisition and his willingness to react strongly when his overtures are rebuffed by international partners. The re-emergence of this proposal in 2025 prompts questions about the underlying motivations and the shifting geopolitical landscape that might make such a bold idea seem pertinent, at least in the eyes of its proponent. The global dynamics, particularly in the Arctic region, are evolving rapidly, with increased attention from various global players. President Trump's justifications, which he frames around national security and the concept of global freedom, are central to understanding why this ambitious, and to many, startling idea continues to be a talking point for his administration, compelling both allies and adversaries to consider its implications carefully. A primary justification put forward by President Trump for the acquisition of Greenland centers squarely on United States national security interests. The Arctic region is increasingly viewed as a new frontier for strategic competition, with nations like Russia and China expanding their military and economic presence there. From Mr. Trump's perspective, outright US sovereignty over Greenland would significantly bolster America's defensive posture in this critical area. It would allow for an unencumbered US military presence and greater control over strategic waterways and airspace, thereby countering the growing influence of other major powers in this rapidly changing northern theater of operations. Beyond the immediate security considerations, the vast, largely untapped natural resources of Greenland represent another significant factor in President Trump's calculus. The island is believed to harbor substantial deposits of valuable minerals, including rare earth elements crucial for modern technology, as well as precious metals, gemstones, coal, graphite, and potentially significant quantities of uranium. Access to, and control over, these resources could reduce American dependence on other countries for strategically important materials, potentially placing the US in a dominant position globally if these resources were to be extensively developed and brought to international markets. President Trump's rhetoric surrounding the Greenland proposal has been characteristically bold, sometimes escalating to a point that causes unease among observers. He has framed the potential acquisition not just in terms of US benefit, but also through the lens of global freedom, though the specifics of this remain somewhat undefined. There has been a notable lack of clear dismissal regarding military intervention, a stance that has raised eyebrows. This approach is consistent with other assertive international actions under his presidency, such as demanding Panama Lower Canal fees or return control of the waterway, and the symbolic renaming of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Ultimately, for President Trump, the pursuit of Greenland might also be intertwined with a desire to forge a significant and memorable legacy. The sheer scale and audacity of proposing to purchase such a vast territory aligns with his pattern of making grand, often controversial geopolitical moves. It is a statement that commands attention on the world stage, irrespective of its immediate feasibility or the diplomatic repercussions. The ambition to add Greenland to the United States is a move that, if successful, would undoubtedly be a historic and transformative event, fundamentally altering maps and geopolitical realities. The reaction from Greenland itself to President Trump's renewed interest has been swift, unequivocal, and entirely dismissive. Greenland's Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, has firmly stated on multiple occasions that Greenland is not for sale. He has emphasized that while Greenland is open to international cooperation and trade, its autonomy and the will of its people are paramount. This clear and consistent message underscores the sentiment within Greenland that its future will be determined by its own population, not by the ambitions of larger nations, however powerful they might be on the global stage. Denmark, which retains sovereignty over Greenland, has mirrored this stance with equal firmness. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen previously labeled the idea of selling Greenland as absurd during Trump's first term, a position she continues to uphold. The Danish government fully supports Greenland's right to self-determination and has made it clear that any discussions about Greenland's status must centrally involve the Greenlandic people. This unified front from both Nuuk and Copenhagen presents a formidable diplomatic obstacle to President Trump's aspirations for acquiring the vast Arctic territory through any sort of negotiated purchase. The renewed talk of purchasing Greenland has also elicited responses from other world leaders, often tinged with disbelief or concern. For instance, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, whose country shares a maritime border with Greenland, responded to President Trump's general assertiveness by stating that Canada won't be for sale. While not a direct comment on the Greenland situation itself, it reflects a broader unease among some US allies regarding what is perceived as a transactional and potentially destabilizing approach to international relations and territorial sovereignty by the Trump administration, raising questions about established norms. Criticism has also emanated from within the United States political sphere. Former President Joe Biden, for example, has characterized President Trump's comments concerning Greenland and similar remarks about Canada as a form of modern-day appeasement, though the exact meaning in this context was open to interpretation. Mr. Biden also questioned the underlying rationale of what he termed Trump's confiscation policy. These critiques highlight the significant political divisions within America regarding such unconventional foreign policy initiatives, suggesting that any serious attempt to acquire Greenland would likely face substantial domestic opposition in addition to international condemnation. While President Trump's current interest in Greenland might seem novel to some, the United States has in fact considered or attempted to acquire the territory on several occasions throughout its history. The earliest notable instance dates as far back as 1867, around the same time the US purchased Alaska from Russia. Secretary of State William Seward, who orchestrated the Alaska purchase, also explored the possibility of buying Greenland and Iceland. Though these past efforts did not come to fruition, they demonstrate that American strategic interest in Greenland is not a new phenomenon, but rather a recurring theme in US foreign policy considerations over the decades. Greenland's strategic importance to the United States military is already well established and deeply entrenched. The US operates the Pituffik Space Base, its northernmost military installation, located on Greenland's northwest coast. This base, formerly known as Thule Air Base, played a crucial role during the Cold War as a forward operating location for early warning systems against Soviet missiles and for strategic bombers. In the contemporary era, with the Arctic gaining prominence due to climate change and resource competition, Pituffik remains vital for space surveillance, missile defense, and projecting American presence in the high north, a region of increasing activity. Beyond its direct military utility, Greenland holds considerable economic and geopolitical significance, which the US has acknowledged through other means. The United States has made investments aimed at bolstering Greenland's economic development and, in a significant diplomatic step, opened a consulate in Nuuk, Greenland's capital, in recent years. This renewed diplomatic presence signals a recognition of Greenland's growing autonomy and its importance in the evolving Arctic landscape, particularly as melting sea ice opens up potential new shipping routes and access to previously unreachable natural resources, attracting interest from global powers like China and Russia. In summarizing the arguments, the perceived advantages for the US in acquiring Greenland, as articulated by proponents, center on enhanced national security in a vital region, direct access to potentially vast mineral wealth, and a significant geopolitical statement. Conversely, the arguments against such a move are substantial. It is vehemently opposed by the people of Greenland and the government of Denmark, raising fundamental questions of sovereignty and self-determination. Furthermore, pursuing such an acquisition could severely damage international relations, be seen as an act of neo-colonialism, and faces considerable ethical and practical hurdles in the 21st century.